Welcome to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where you can learn and be inspired by real-world examples of how technology is transforming businesses and reshaping industries in a language everyone can understand. Here is your host, Neil C. Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast. Yes, I'm back in the saddle. It won't mean anything to you guys because I always have 2 or 3 weeks of guests booked in, scheduled, ready to go. But I did take a week's holiday. I spent 1 week in Croatia, completely stepped away from everything, emails, editing podcasts, writing, the whole shaboodle for 7 days. I think it's the first time I've done it in 4 years, but man, I feel completely liberated. My mojo has been recharged, but I did return to an inbox of over 800 emails. And I did send a tweet out there saying, apologies, I'm not touching my emails while I'm on holiday. And I wanted to give a big shout out to Peter Winters, who says, hey, don't worry, take 2 weeks. You deserve it. So a big thank you to Peter Winters for messaging and listening to the show. I know you're a long-term listener, Peter. It's always great to hear from you. And I think the last 2 years has been difficult on absolutely everyone. And it's so important that we take time for ourselves. And many businesses have failed, many have pivoted, and those that continue to chase their tech dream are beginning to bounce back in style. So today I've invited William West back onto the podcast. He is a serial entrepreneur. He's founded 4 startup companies. But after a 20-year career building tech companies using VR, AR and AI and writing business books, he's now building on his passion endeavour and merging his love for the sea with building companies and technology. It has an app called Waypoint that addresses the paradox of choice and uses the dopamine circle in the way that dating apps do, but to help users plan their luxury tropical vacations on sailboats, power yachts and villas and so much more. So buckle up and hold on tight as I beam your ears all the way to Indiana so we can speak with William about all this and have a good old-fashioned catch-up. So a massive warm welcome back to the show. For anyone that missed our previous conversation, can you just remind the listeners with a little about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, sure. William West, been an entrepreneur for the last 20 years, predominantly in the e-learning education technology market through some of the larger organizations in the field. And I've owned a couple of my own companies in the field as well.
And it has been over 2 years since we last spoke, and you are known as a serial entrepreneur. You founded 4 startup companies. And a question I didn't ask you before, which I feel I've got to ask you now, is what's your origin story? Where did your passion for technology come from, and what was it that put you on this path you're on today?
It was just between you and I. It was a mistake. I came out of college with a computer science background in artificial intelligence, and I went to work for a consulting company, Anderson Consulting, and they were getting ready to start this field of CBT, computer-based training. And I just happened to be in an organization where I was the only one who understood what the C stood for. Everybody else were trainers. And so I kind of found myself in a field where I specialized in the technical aspects of CBT. And it's just carried on over the years into what officially became e-learning. I was part of a .com that was doing really well, but they were heavily financed. And when the market collapsed, about the same time the 2 towers collapsed, they went out of business, and I basically picked up the scraps. And it was my first journey into entrepreneurship. And it went really well, and I sold it, and I just have been a vagabond in e-learning ever since. I really, really enjoyed the field.
Absolutely love that. And I think after 1,700 interviews on here, whenever I ask anyone that question, it always seems that there's a big role of serendipity and everything, those happy accidents in life. It's almost like the universe nudges in the direction when we need it to make sure we're where we need to be and at the right time. But after a 20-year career building tech companies using big technology such as virtual reality, augmented reality and artificial intelligence and writing business books, can you tell me more about how you're merging your love for the sea and building companies? Because again, it's great how these worlds have collided for you.
I'm at a point in my career where I want to focus more on my passion and trying to figure out how to take everything that I've learned the last 20 years and support that passion. So the passion for sailing happened about 12 years ago when I took my son on our first trip, and absolutely loved it. It was like it's unlike anything you've ever experienced to have a big boat on big water, bouncing from island to island and visiting beach bars and just having a great time. And I did it every single year after that. And but I also worked at the same time. And when the pandemic happened, I had to take a step back from everything. The pandemic pretty much took the rug out from under us in the VR business. Everybody was more worried about Zoom than they were VR. So I had a chance to step back and say, what do I really want to do? Well, this was shortly after 2 hurricanes came through the British Virgin Islands, Irma and Marie, and really devastated everything my son and I had ever seen. And that really hit me personally, and really regenerated my passion for not just the sailing practice, but that whole area, and trying to figure out what I could do to help. So Regatta Travel started out as me helping boat captains fix their boats and get them back on the sea. And then we made some decisions along the way to say, maybe we could probably do something a little bit bigger. So I've taken the entrepreneurial aspect, I've taken my artificial intelligence background and my passion for the Caribbean and the sea, and found a way to merge it all into one thing.
Love that. And I would imagine that the experience that you pictured there of you and your son on this big boat hopping from island to island, that must have made it even more special by experiencing that with your boy, right?
It really did. That's what made it so personal, because it wasn't just that the hurricanes came through and caused damage. Yeah. They literally flattened everything my son and I had ever seen. All those experiences were completely destroyed, and I needed to find a way to rebuild that again, relive it.
And how would you describe Regatta Travel for people listening and hearing about you guys for the first time?
Yeah, it's focused on tropical vacations. Yeah. It's more diverse than anything out there. So we not only boats, we do small boats down to 42 feet, all the way up to 170 feet, the big yachts. But we also do villas. So people who don't want to be on the water, but want to be, in the palm trees and on the beaches and such, we do villas. We even do private islands. We have 30 islands, including Richard Branson's island. So if you've got a big group that wants to really blow it out, then they have that opportunity. And we have private planes, because a lot of our clientele, there's 4, 5, 6 of them. They don't want to fly commercial, and they'll pool their money and get on a private plane, get to their destination faster. So, one idea, there's a couple ideas. One was basically have something that was more diverse and a bigger inventory than something you might find on a single site of people who specialize in boats or whatever. But because the pandemic had closed the charter lanes and we had more time on our hands, we really thought through what could we do different and what's wrong with travel planning. Well, I recently took a trip to Puerto Rico, and at one time when I was trying to put my trip together, I had 16 tabs open on my browser, trying to figure out where to stay and what to do, and it was just a nightmare. Yeah. And so our system said we could do better. And so ours is completely different. There's this thing called paradox of choice, and which basically is that the more choices you have, the least satisfied you are with the choice you make. Yeah. And so we focus, instead of having you pick the islands and villas on your own, we focus on just what do you want to do on your vacation. You want to go fishing, snorkeling, you want beach bars, you want to shop, have fine dining. You pick what you want to do, and then the system goes out and finds the right island, the right villa or boat, and comes back and says, these 3 choices are perfect for what you want to do. And the process starts from there.
And I think that after, 18 months of lockdown, being trapped within those 4 walls, it feels like all our senses are heightened now, and we just have that urge to feel the sun on our face, wind in our hair, and sound of the ocean, etc. And I've been there with those 16 tabs that you mentioned open, just trying to book a trip. But how does Regatta differ from other travel companies out there?
Well, a couple different things. We have more diversity. Yeah. For one, we have a speciality that you won't get on Expedia and such. We have a concierge service. So we're going back to personalized service. So you go to our system and you pick 3 or 4 or 5 options that look perfect for you, but then you're going to talk to a person. And that person's going to help understand what it is you really want to do, what the best choices are, budget, dates, those kinds of things. And you're going to have two calls with that person who's going to make sure that what we have set up is exactly what you envisioned. Our clientele tend to be more the high net worth individuals who just don't have time. A lot of colleagues of mine who want to take trips and they just don't have the time to sort through all these tabs and things. So they want to make a call. So we give them something fun to play with the app, and then they call and actually talk to a real person, and we take care of the hard work.
And as this is a tech podcast, one of the things that put you back on my radar was about this app called Waypoint and how it is addressing that paradox of choice you just mentioned, and actually uses the dopamine circle the way that dating apps do to actually help users plan luxury tropical vacations, whether it be on sailboats, power cats, yachts, or villas, etc. So can you expand on that, the technology that makes it all possible, and how the app works?
Yeah, we flipped it upside down. So the app is really focused on just on having fun, putting more fun back into the trip planning process of indicating what it is you want to do, all the activities that are fun for you, and then having choices that you can swipe through, and you know that every choice is perfect. You know, you go on like a travel app now, and yeah, you've got 100 choices, but you don't know. Let's talk the Puerto Rico trip. I know exactly where I wanted to be. And as I was scrolling through there, I saw a resort that I really liked. It had some great things and almost booked it. So I realized it was on the other side of the island. It was nowhere near the things that we actually wanted to do. So the idea is to just make this a whole lot more fun. There's an artificial intelligence engine in the back. And so we have, what do we have? We have 1,400 boats, 1,000 villas, 30 islands, 4,000 planes. And so it would take an eon to scroll through all that, trying to find what you want. What the AI does is the AI goes through all of that. And based on the things you said you want to do, it comes back with the best choices for you.
For the techies listening, just have a look under the hood, so to speak, for a moment. Can you tell me a little bit more about what's going on under there? You mentioned that AI engine that makes it all possible, but is there anything else you can share about the technology behind it all?
Well, everything's weighted.
Yeah.
What's interesting about these trips is that when you go to charter a boat, fundamentally the boats are all the same. They're different sizes, but they're usually laid out the same. So when it comes to choosing boat to boat, you might look at the age of the boat and those kinds of things. But what makes one boat different than another boat is what's on it. Does it have fishing gear? Does it have snorkel gear, scuba gear? You'd hate to charter a boat and then get on the boat and find out they don't have scuba gear when that was the most important thing for you. The islands are all different. And that's the most important distinction. If you want a really high class experience where you can shop and have fine dining, you're going to want to go to a place like St. Bart's. But if you want to scuba or snorkel or hike, St. Bart's is not the right island for you. You may want to go to Dominica. So Dominica takes you on the most amazing 26-mile hike across these mountains and has these waterfalls and all this kind of stuff. And if that's what you want, that's where you want to go. But if you wanted shopping and high-end dining and stuff, that's not the island to go. And there's 60 islands along the Caribbean. And so it finds the right location that's going to allow you to do things you want to do. And then it searches on that location to find the right accommodations, whether it's a house or a villa or a boat. And all of them's weighted because they all have snorkeling, but some have really good snorkeling versus others.
So how does it work? Is it just a case of downloading the app and putting in what you're looking for there?
Sure. There's two interfaces. One's on our website.
Yeah.
And so that's just go to the web page and click Waypoint, and then there's an app that you would download from the App Store, and the app looks a lot like the dating apps. You're going to swipe left for the ones you're not interested in, and right for the ones you are interested, and you swipe up to see details and more pictures. The dating apps work in terms of their interface and the dopamine cycle and getting people excited about things. Unlike the dating app, when you swipe on a villa, it doesn't fall into a black hole someplace or you never find it again. And somebody's actually going to call you back, right? And so it just makes it more fun and enjoyable. And you slowly whittle down to the ones that just seem absolutely perfect for you. And that's the way they work. And then you can save from trip to trip over time as well. So you can go back to your choices. You can play around with the selection. So if you have 4 or 5 activities that you selected and you see some choices, you can go back and maybe select the 6th or 7th choice and just really mix it up. Compare villas versus boats and just really have some fun with it versus sitting on your desktop and just scrolling through. everything looks the same.
And as I said a few moments ago, it feels like all our senses are heightened now. We have had 18 months where travel has been, the whole entire travel industry has been entirely decimated, as with the hospitality industry as well. But things are starting to pick back up. People are starting to think about traveling again. But I'm curious, how has the pandemic impacted you and your business? And what's your focus going to be over the next 18 months to help you bounce back?
Yeah, absolutely. The pandemic, we changed the business plan 3 times as a result of consistently not being able to do. First, it wasn't being able to get the boats that we wanted, and then all the charter lanes were closed down. The BVI was totally closed down for the entire season. And what it did, ironically, is it gave us more time to really think through what we wanted to do. It gave us more time to form partnerships so that we have the inventory of over 6,000 units. So we had time to pull that together. The AI app was something that we probably would have built over time as the business was running. Because of the pandemic, we built it ahead, so we rolled out right away with it. It gave us more time, but it also forced us to change our direction a couple of times. From an entrepreneur standpoint, that does mean, though, that you're spending money without revenue for a while. So I had to rethink a lot of things. We used a lot of interns and junior staff to slow down the burn. Amazing kids, I'll tell you. The Gen Z, we'll have a podcast about that, but these kids are great. And yeah, the entire industry was just being, decimated by the pandemic. Now it's changed. That pendulum has swung so fast to the other side that things are booked up. Every single yacht, 150, 170 foot yachts that we have are booked solid. A lot of people, especially the affluent, their portfolios continued to increase in value as the stock market went up, but yet they spent no money because they didn't go anywhere. Yeah. So now they're ready to get out, spend some money, have a great time, get away from the house for a while. And so the businesses, the season got really, really active, especially the Mediterranean season got really active. And I expect the Caribbean season, which starts at the end of October, is going to be very active as well.
Sounds like an incredibly exciting time for you. So I wish you the best of luck for the future. Before I let you go, though, another feature that we've added to the podcast since our last conversation is we start with your origin story. And I always like to finish by asking you what the soundtrack to your journey in technology has been. So is there a particular song that has inspired you, helped you through some tough times, or just helps you get your head in the zone? Is there a particular song that we can add to our Spotify playlist and a reason why you chose that song too?
Zach Brown has a song called The Island Song, and it says, if you really want to go where you can find me, you'll find me on an island. And I got to say, that's the one. I'm about to move to Tortola in the British Virgin Islands to run the business firsthand. And so if you want to know where you can find me, you're going to find me on an island.
Man, that sounds like an excuse for me to meet you for a cold beer, because for work purposes, of course, right?
Well, of course, Theo. You come down, we'll go out on a boat, we'll have some brews, it'll be awesome.
Oh, man, love it. And for anyone listening that would like to download the app, check out your website, contact your team, or come and visit you on your in the Caribbean there, what's the best starting point?
Well, the web address is www.regatta.travel. And that's the best way to start.
Excellent. Well, I'll add that link to the show notes. It's been great to speak with you again. I love what you've done here, how you've pivoted, but I can't help but think that the worlds of AR and VR will further collide with your travel offerings. I feel that there's something going to happen there. And I think we also need to learn more about the Gen Z kids and how great they are, and the angle that you were talking about a few moments ago. So we won't leave it 2 years until we speak again. It'd be great to get you on early next year when things are back up and running. But more than anything, just thank you for sitting down to speak with me again.
You bet, Neil. It's always a pleasure. Take care.
1,000 boats, villas, 4,000 planes, 30 private islands across 50 countries, combined with AI and a mobile app to empower users to only see options based on their vacation vibe that they're going for and avoid the paradox of choice. And 16 tabs on a browser is pretty impressive. But I think more than anything, it's William's story, daring to follow his dream, go all in. And as a result, you'll find him soon leaving Indiana and heading for the Caribbean. So, William, if you do listen back to this interview, let your dreams set sail, my friend. And my only apologies is that this time around, apologies for the lack of nautical references in our return conversation. Rest assured, I won't leave you high and dry again. But in saying that, I'm probably sailing a little bit close to the wind. So instead, I'll invite you all listening to email me, techblogwriter@outlook.com. Connect with me on Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn @NeilCHughes. And my website is techblogwriter.co.uk. But it's time for me to make waves now. See what I did there? So a big thank you for listening. And until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thank you for listening to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast with Neil C. Hughes. Remember, technology works best when it brings people together.